Hi everyone, it's Nichol Spohr here today for Simon Says Stamp, and I am sharing two cards created with the January 2020 card kit called Snowflake Builder. This gorgeous card kit comes with everything you need to make some wintry, fun-themed cards. I'm going to be using alcohol ink from the kit as well as a lift ink from my own stash to create my backgrounds. I've got some YUPO paper here, and I received the Stream alcohol ink in my kit. I'm going to just put a few drops on my YUPO paper and move it around with the We Are Memory Keepers airbrush tool. I have really found I like the airbrush tool for kind of getting some really fun effects with alcohol inks. Now, if you can believe it, this background is simply created with the alcohol ink from the kit and then some brass alcohol ink from my stash. This is a gorgeous, this is my very favorite metallic color. This is the brass color from Jacquard, and it's the brass alcohol ink. It looks fantastic. It really works with all different colors of alcohol ink. I highly recommend it. So I'm using some product from the kit and from my stash for this background, but no additional alcohol ink colors. I think that's really a fun effect. In addition to the one colorful, I'm using the metallic with that, and look at all of the variation in color that you get just with that one color. I love the airbrush tool, and I'm just going to continue to move this around, add little drops here and there, add some drops of metallic, and you get this beautiful effect. The background is actually super pretty as is, but we're going to be doing one of my very favorite things with alcohol inks, and that's the alcohol lift ink technique. Basically, we're creating our own pattern paper background. I'm not going to fill the entire panel, so that's my first background. Often when I am creating with alcohol inks especially, I like to do multiples. I like to do this with lots of card making, but while I have the mess out with the alcohol inks, I will often make multiple backgrounds and then clean it up all at once. You're going to see how both of the backgrounds are different from one another, but yet similar. We're using the same colors. I didn't switch anything up. As far as that goes, we're going to use everything just the same. I'm going to use the airbrush tool. You could also use the felt blending tools that work with alcohol inks if you want to get some more precise backgrounds. There's lots of ways to use the alcohol inks. I'm simply sharing this airbrush technique today because I really like how it looks with the snowflake background. So creating your own custom backgrounds is just a really great way to play around with all kinds of fantastic techniques and products. We're going to continue to kind of just build this second one. Again, I am not going to cover the whole background. If you don't want any white space when you trim down your background panel, go ahead and fill that whole thing in. I really kind of liked the effect of some white along the edges, so I purposely did not fill the whole thing in. No two backgrounds are going to be alike. Another fantastic thing about alcohol ink. Simply just going to keep adding to this, pushing that ink around with the airbrush tool. If you don't have an airbrush tool like this, you can always kind of just blow that ink around with a straw. If you have a straw somewhere in your house, you can just blow air through that and kind of move that air around as well. Or move the ink around as well, pardon me. Once I have this done, I'm going to let the backgrounds dry. They're going to dry really fast. Then I'm going to trim these both down with my paper trimmer so that I have usable backgrounds. Now, if you wanted to, you could always die cut these backgrounds in a certain shape if you wanted to. You definitely don't have to trim them down. One thing I want to note before I actually trim them down, I did my stamping before trimming them down because it just made it easier as far as figuring out where I want my snowflakes to go. The 6x8 clear stamp set included in the January 2020 kit is called Snowflake Builder, and it definitely builds snowflakes. I love that on the stamp set, on the contact sheet, it shows you which snowflakes go together. There's a little dashed line around them. So each snowflake set has 2 stamps. We're going to have to stamp those separately. So we'll stamp the first design first. I'm going to stamp that with the alcohol lift ink. So I'm going to make sure my stamps are good and clean because you don't want to transfer. You can see there is a little ink on my alcohol ink pad, but I don't want to transfer too much to that. So I clean my stamps really good with a strong cleaner. I recommend the Simon Says Stamp Cleaner. And then I am inking it up and pressing those images down into the alcohol ink. And I like to kind of press it and hold it there for a minute before lifting up. And you can see immediately that where I have stamped those snowflake images, the ink has lifted off. Now to remove the rest of that, I'm going to take a dry rag. You can take a dry paper towel. I do recommend switching the area, the clean area, often so you don't smear some ink. There was a couple instances where I smeared a little ink, but you kind of want to dab up that excess ink first, and then I gently buff the image until that beautiful ghosted image shows through. Look how beautiful these are. Anywhere that there's some of the metallic ink, so that brass alcohol ink that we used, it is not going to lift that away really. I purposely really enjoy that look. I like the imperfect look of that, so I don't worry about it a whole lot. Now, if you want to stamp them again to remove even more ink, you could do that at this point, but you want to clean your stamps first really good before re-inking them with the alcohol lift ink. You can also, the first stamping was really good here. I had just re-inked my alcohol lift ink pad, and so I'm just going to clean my stamps and put them away, and I'm going to grab the coordinating builder snowflake shape from my stamp set and layer those on, and they perfectly worked together. I'll be sharing some more cards using this set and just showing different ways to use these with different inks, not just lift ink, because in this case all of the snowflake is going to be one color. I'm just using the lift ink, but it just gives these beautiful detailed snowflakes when you add the 2 pieces together. So there I'm lifting away again, and you can see it's starting to show up already, and then I'm going to dab away the excess ink, just kind of lift the rest of that up, and then gently buff the snowflake images to remove any excess ink and reveal the beautiful snowflake images. Isn't that large snowflake stunning? I absolutely love this. Now, you could just do a few, or you could go ahead and do several. I ended up really filling in a lot of the alcohol inked area. I wanted this to look more like a background rather than an accent. We're going to be adding accents to the top of this here in a little bit to finish up our card. So again, we're just going to stamp those images. I did fill in with a smaller snowflake from the stamp set, and I didn't add the snowflake builder to that. I didn't feel like it needed it, and it was a small enough snowflake that it's perfect for filling in some of those little areas. I've also purposely stamped some of them off the edge of the inked area, so off into the white area, so that they aren't all perfectly just in the alcohol inked background. So that one looks pretty good. Loving how that turned out. So pretty. Let's take our paper trimmer and trim down our background now. This is where I'm trimming it down to 4 inches by 5 1/4, which will leave a nice white border around all 4 sides of our background. And look at those little white areas along the edges. I just love that. I think that turned out so much fun. Next, we're just going to do the same thing again. I'm going to take my second background and we are going to stamp it up. Now that I was a little bit more comfortable with building the snowflakes, I stamped a lot more of them with the first impression. Again, holding that alcohol lift ink in place for a little bit before I lifted up the cover of my MISTI, and then I'm going to kind of dab and buff away any of that excess ink. And you'll see that I kind of move my finger. I'm using my finger to buff, and I'm going to move to a clean area of my rag pretty often so that I'm not just smearing that ink around. Let's clean off our stamps with the stamp cleaner, and then we will layer on with our second impression. Look how pretty. I really like that one on the bottom there, this with the star shape. I didn't use that on the first background, and I'm not even really sure why. I really, really love that one. We'll trim down our second background to 4 inches by 5 1/4. Again, leaving some really fun little white areas along the edges. And then I'm using the Mandala Mini Snowflake wafer thin die included in the kit and the Simon Says Stamp silver glitter cardstock to die cut this beautiful silver glitter snowflake shape that we can layer over that largest ghosted snowflake in our background. I decided I needed some extra snowflakes though, so I'm going to use a couple of dies from the Snow Flurries set and die cut those from the silver glitter cardstock included into the kit as well. A little trio of sparkly silver snowflakes is the perfect addition to this background. I love adding my embellishments in odd numbers like groups of 3. I've laid them out on my background and now I'm planning out my sentiment. I'm not going to adhere anything quite yet and instead going to wait until I have all of my components and then I will finish putting together my cards. For my sentiments, I'm going to be using the Thank You So Much sentiment as well as the You're Amazing phrase or the Hello Friend phrase. So we're just going to use Hello Friend with that thank you sentiment for one of the greetings and the You're Amazing sentiment with the thank you for the other one. Just a little mix and match to switch it up. I'm going to stamp these on some of the sea glass cardstock included in the January kit. I'm going to use a powder tool first, and I really didn't put these up in a corner or anything like that. I'm going to actually be die cutting this into a banner shape. I'm not really sure why I stamped the first one so far down. The second sentiment I'll stamp a little bit higher to use up a little bit of that space. I wasn't exactly sure which banner I wanted to use when I stamped this first one. We're going to use some Simon Says Stamp clear embossing ink and silver embossing powder for the sentiment. The silver of the embossing powder ties in beautifully with those sparkly silver snowflakes. I love how the silver looks on the sea glass cardstock. One of the reasons I chose the sea glass cardstock from the kit as opposed to one of the gray cardstocks or even the white is I love that the ghosted or the alcohol lift ink snowflakes in the background almost look like this color. They're not pure white, of course. It lifts a lot of that alcohol ink, but not all of it. And I think it just ties in really beautifully and that sea glass cardstock matches perfectly. Let's stamp our second sentiment. This time we're using You're Amazing with the Thank You So Much. I think these cards also work really nicely. They're going to work for anything that you need a thank you card during the winter season, but maybe you're needing some thank you cards now that it's after Christmas, and this is going to work really nice as far as maybe making a whole set of thank you cards to use for anything that you need coming up. We're going to take one of my very favorite Simon Says Stamp dies. This is a banner die from the die collections, I should say. This is the Nested Banners dies, and I'm going to use the largest notched banner to die cut my sentiments. And I love how it just gives a professional, beautiful look to your sentiments. Then I'm going to take some Ranger Multi-Matte Medium, and I've got the Scrap Perfect Precision Tip on my bottle so that I can draw little lines of glue right where I want them to go, and I'm going to layer my die-cut silver glitter snowflakes right over the alcohol lift ink snowflakes in the background. So just a trio of those. I'm not going to cover all of them. And then I'm going to find an open space in either the upper third or lower third of the design, and I'm going to adhere my banner with foam adhesive. Originally, I thought I would just put some gems in the center of my 3 glitter die-cut cardstock snowflakes. I opted, though, to go ahead and adorn that largest snowflake with a few additional gems to really make it sparkle, shine, and show up. So we're going to put a gem in the center of the 3 snowflakes, and then we're going to add the little teeny tiny ones to the points of the large snowflake on both card backgrounds. This is a really subtle look, but I think it adds great embellishment to the card design. I'm using a crystal katana, and again, that Ranger Multi-Matte Medium. We'll add little dabs of the Ranger Multi-Matte Medium, and then pick up the Pretty Pink Posh Pearl White jewels with the crystal katana and put them right where we want them to go. I love this precision tip on I'm using it on the Multi-Matte Medium today, but I also have one for my glossy accents because it draws such a teeny tiny line. It works really great. We're going to do the same thing for our second card background. This time, instead of placing the banner in the lower third of the card, we're going to place this one in the upper third. Again, we'll add those larger gems to the center of our die-cut glitter snowflakes and take the smallest gems and glue those to the points of our largest snowflake. Now that I have created these thank you cards using the Stream alcohol ink, I'd love to see them in lots of different colors. However, the icy blues of this design really give that wintry mix feel that is just perfect for all of the components included in the January 2020 Simon Says Stamp Card Kit. Once we have our gems in place, we'll place these panels on white top fold card bases so they have a nice white border all the way around, and our cards are all finished. Thank you so much for joining me today for these two cards featuring the January 2020 Card Kit Snowflake Builder. Please be sure to visit the Simon Says Stamp blog for more information. Thanks for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.